agenda item 3, and that is consideration of approval of an agreement temporarily extending the existing memorandum of agreement for 3 months between Furman Group, Inc. and the City of Mesquite and other matters properly related thereto. Mr. Barton, this is your recommendation. I'll let you go ahead and read through that if you want.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, all we're doing is proposing that we do a kind of a stopgap extension of the agreement that we have with Furman Consultants. There's a fairly lengthy history that we have with this organization. I think our city liaison officer can provide some of that information, but I think we have a relationship going back with them until 1996. In any event, we know that council wanted some additional time to take a look at the contract and determine what they wanted to do, which is why we put the extension on the agenda for council to review.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Barton. Any questions for Mr. Barton? Councilman Littman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I spent a lot of time looking at this agreement that we had with Furman Group, and personal opinion, I'm very dissatisfied with the entire thing, and don't see a need to extend a contract or an agreement with them. They're not doing anything right now, to put it bluntly. We have spent since 2004 $1,120,000 billed from the Furman Group. The contract reads $96,000 a year, but there's no cap on all their expenses that they can charge us. And our average bill has been in the $120,000 to $130,000 to $140,000 charge per year. This is year in and year out. And as I went back through their lobbying reports, and this is the reports that Sally Furman herself signs and brings into the Senate and the Congress, there are some years that they didn't lobby any bills whatsoever. And this is stated by them, this is not stated by me. There are some years that they did, and obviously they worked harder sometimes than others. So I did a little math and I tried to figure out what are we paying these guys, because we really don't have much accountability, or at least haven't had a lot of accountability. We worked on this, we worked on that. Just alone on and this is a great job, we pay $2,500 a week, 52 weeks a year to this group. That's a lot of money. And as far as what we've got, yes, some years we've gotten some really good things out of them, some years we've got nothing. But the way the retainer is set up now, we've already been billed $30,000 for the first 3 months of the year, which we pay because we pay in advance. We're going to be paying another $30,000 before the summer's over with. And when you look at what has been accomplished, the answer so far this year is zero. And this is why I think we should stop the contract at this point, and then again look at it as it's due later on at the end of the summer, and maybe come to some new conclusions as to how much we need them and what are we doing with this organization. And the more you study lobbyists, and I've spent a lot of time reading about what lobbyists do, the more confusing it becomes, because you can't pinpoint most of the time what they're doing. When you have an attorney, and these guys are basically attorneys, they bill you by the hour. Usually in the billing statement, you know what they've done, who they've seen, and what they've accomplished, and you can decide at that point if you're going to keep them on a retainer. And I don't see us as a small city like this needing a firm that's charging at an average of $120,000 to $140,000 a year in retainer fees, and that's the point I'm going to make. Period.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Rapson.
Well, I tend to agree with Councilman Littman. And here's the deal. I mean, there are times in the past when we had the airport and the contiguity piece and all of these other things, the BLM land takedowns, and those were important things to have somebody in our federal court, so to speak. We don't have anything going on right now. I agree 100% that we need to revise this contract to where it says on an as-need basis with some fee-certain arrangement with each project, and make it project specific. And if there isn't anything, they ain't anything. And so I agree to that extent, and I think since we don't have anything on the table today, I would like to recommend that staff begin discussions with the Furman Group with some understanding of if an issue comes up, advise us, and we will negotiate a contract for that specific issue or something in that vein, which doesn't keep us paying for things that aren't happening.
Councilman Witheld.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, Mr. Rapson kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I'm sure that there's got to be a way we could renegotiate this contract. I think to totally divorce ourselves from this group would be kind of frivolous, but I think on an as-need basis, we could probably negotiate some sort of a fee schedule or payment schedule. So therefore, I recommend that we would probably revisit the contract and maybe renegotiate something, but to totally abandon them, I think would be frivolous. Thank you.
Councilman Gustavson.
Thank you, Councilman Withilder. You're absolutely right. It would be very foolish if we abandoned them. I know that Councilman Littman sees no use for them and thinks they've never done anything for us. But it's a lot of the things you don't see some project being completed or not being completed. It's the times they go to different federal, not just our representatives in Washington, but other groups in Washington that we need to talk about, flood control and other things that they've contributed probably a lot to the city. And to assume that for some reason we don't need them, do we need to come up with a different contract? Maybe. But I'm glad to hear that Gino at least realizes there is some value there, and I think that, yeah, you need maybe to talk to them about a different contract. But you know, if you make it that you're not going to talk to them about something on somewhat of an ongoing basis, they probably will move on to another client. And believe me, they are one of the premium organizations back in Washington, D.C. They were spending time back there. And I don't know whether you have, Val, or not, but I think you might have a little bit different opinion if you spend some time and you actually called on our congressional representatives and so on, and seeing the report and so on, they not only have with them, but more important, with their staffs. That's worth a lot to us.